There are 3 books which belong in the pantheon of best puzzle books of all time. They are Perfect Your Chess, How to Think Like a Super GM, and then this book, The Best Move by Jansa and Hort. I've done book reviews of the first 2. You can find them right here. Okay, what makes a good puzzle book, right? It's kind of an interesting question. There's a bunch of puzzle books out there. Which ones are the most interesting, useful? Now, in my opinion, a good puzzle book needs to stretch your mind. And when your mind is stretched, you will find yourself touching some kind of new capability. And in general, my experience is when you touch that new capability, something beautiful will open up before you. Some kind of aesthetic joy you will experience in that new capability. That's the way chess is, right? The new limit of your understanding is generally accompanied by a feeling of like, oh my God, that's beautiful. I want to do something like that. One of the things about this, about puzzles, is you're training yourself for a very human situation. You're not training yourself to whatever computer thing the computer sees, right? It's a human situation, and a lot of times it's an intuitive call. It's not just always calculation, right? A lot of times you just have to go for it by a gut feeling. And so, especially Perfect Your Chess and The Best Move are really very high-level books about making that kind of decision. And then many of the positions will be about calculation, but some will be about your chess understanding, some will be about your intuition, right? And that's what chess decisions are. You have to make a call using all of the capabilities at your disposal. It won't always be some kind of computery calculation thing. And one of the reasons I really like this book and Perfect Your Chess is that they use positions that are taken from real games and that's not found by the computer. So most calculation books out there, you even heard me call them calculation books, are books about finding what the computer found. And the authors of these books will take a bunch of games and find where the eval bar dropped dramatically and then ask you to find what the computer found. And some of those can be quite interesting, but they lack a human understanding. Like there's no one going to tell you in the solution of like how they found the move, for example. And you're not going to be able to test yourself against another human's understanding. So for example, in this book, one of the amazing things is not only are you testing your skills against what was played in the game and what was played in the analysis, but you could disagree, right? You could disagree and say, wait a second, I know this isn't computer tested. I can have my own opinion. And then you get in a little debate, and then you start analyzing deeper, and it's very interesting, right? And that's this process of stretching, which oftentimes yields very interesting and beautiful results. So I'm just going to show one example of why I think what makes a good problem and what makes this book so special. So here, this is Hort against Reshevsky, 1970. And the question is, do you want to play e5? Do you want to take this bad boy, or do you want to play knight c6, right? Okay. Now, this was a very instructive position for me. I eventually settled on e5. My first intuition was to play knight c6, bishop c4, to take this thing, and then to get what seemed like interesting compensation. But I couldn't make it really work, I wanted to play knight c6 because that's the move that appeals to my sense of development and activity, right? Okay. So then I ended up playing for e5. However, after bishop c4, the game still becomes pretty complicated, let's say. Okay? That was the best I could come up with. So imagine this. Hort and Reshevsky hanging around the tournament hall after the game. Fischer walks by, starts analyzing. Why? Because he hates Reshevsky, wants to beat him even in the analysis session. So he's trying to prove Black's position. Fischer finds an amazing move here, an amazing move which speaks to the guy's talent and what it means to play chess on a different level. The following move or sequence, if you have some chess culture or whatever, you will recognize as being mildly similar to the ideas in Byrne Fischer Game of the Century. Okay, you can Google that if you don't know what I'm talking about. So knight c6, bishop c4, and now check this out. Bishop a1, queen a1. My mind, and I think almost anyone's here, is just going to stop. It's going to see this big old fandanglo and be like, Baus, I'm done. I'm done. No way. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm not even thinking about it. Fischer's like, Baus, well, I'll just take this thing. And then once you see this, you're like, oh, I think I understand. I think I understand. If the rook is taken, this is going to be deadly. Okay? And if the queen goes back, it's positionally lost. The white king is not going to come out. We're about to play rook d8, and we're crushing. Now notice it's not like one of those chess.com puzzles, right? It's not like the game is over with some tactical flourish. No, it's just positionally lost, and it's up to you to understand that, right? Very interesting. Different than a lot of the puzzles, like I'm saying, right? Look at that beautiful bishop over here. So a really unique example where you can measure yourself against Fischer, understand why you might not be at that same level, right? And also Hort and Reshevsky, super GMs of the day, also not at the level, right? And so that kind of story is what I want in a puzzle, right? I want, ideally, right? I want some chess knowledge. I want some, maybe some chess culture, a human appreciation of the position, because that's what I think anybody is ultimately looking for when they're doing a puzzle, right? They want to understand something. You don't get to play with the computer when you play and sit down and tournament. A lot of these puzzles don't have like a super clear answer. And one of the things I love about them is some of the puzzles are what you shouldn't do, right? So it's not just like, oh, there's some super great move. No, it's like, don't do the super great looking move, right? A lot of them also are questions of chess intuition. Who is better and why? And there's kind of an old school cruelty to it that I have to admit I like dude will say things like, oh, if you thought black was better here, then you don't understand chess. You know, just that kind of coldness that you're not allowed to do anymore, but this kind of fun and interesting. Old school. All right, so there it is, the best move, one of the 3 top puzzle books of all time. I want to stress it's not for the, let's say, below 2,000. We have other great books in the dojo that are for that kind of range. For example, Chess Tactics from Scratch, I reviewed that here. The Polgar Mates book, I also reviewed that one. And those books will be more appropriate before you get to this level where we're really talking about a variety of skills you need with intuition, calculation, chess understanding. All right, till next time.